We're live? Okay. Welcome to this meeting of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. Thank you for being here. Earlier today, the Governance Committee met and recommended the full board approve various BFSA policies, procedures, and reports. These items will be brought for a vote today. Also earlier today, the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee met and recommended to the full board approval of the audited financial statements as presented to the committee by representatives of Lunsman and McCormick, and also to approve the 2024 annual report. Our agenda today further includes a review of the financial plans of both the city and the school district, a discussion on the status of ARPA spending in the city budget, and a review of labor agreements between the district and the transportation aides of Buffalo. I would like to bring to your attention a few items that have been provided to you. There is a draft 2025 meeting calendar provided in your board book under additional documents. This calendar reflects the new budget and financial reporting timing as recently changed from May 1st to April 8th by the city. Please review the proposed schedule and inform Jeanette Grove of any scheduling conflicts you are aware of. A revised calendar will be distributed by email as needed. The final schedule of meetings will be brought to the full board for a vote at the December board meeting. Additionally, a board self-evaluation is required to be conducted annually. An evaluation form has been provided to you along with an envelope for mailing the document. The evaluation process is confidential and responses will be compiled at the next Governance Committee meeting to be held on December 12th, 2024, so please get it in before that. I ask that each of you complete the evaluation and mail it to the office. Finally, a statement of compliance with our Code of Ethics has been provided to you with a separate envelope. Let me thank the individuals here for already filling that out. We are asked to mail that item separately to maintain confidentiality with the board in the self-evaluation process. The Code of Ethics document is provided under tab 1 in your board book for your review. We will open the meeting to the public comments on any matters discussed today at the conclusion of this meeting. We will begin today's meeting with Executive Director Rowe taking a roll call of the directors.
Thanks. Okay, Chair Pro Tem Sloss.
Here.
Interim Vice Chair Jurasek.
Present.
Director Sanfilippo.
Here.
Mayor Brown.
Here.
And County Executive Blumenkart. There is a quorum present.
Thank you very much. Directors, you will find a draft of minutes and an accompanying draft resolution in your board book under tab 3 for the June 17th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion.
Okay, second. All right. Is there any discussion, corrections, or changes that need to be made? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Next item, to affirm the recommendation by the Audit, Finance, and Budget Committee to approve both the 2024 audited financial statements and the 2024 annual report. BFSA is required to file both these items with the New York State Controller's Office. Additionally, these items will be submitted to various New York State officials and local officials and will also be posted to the BFSA website. Copies of these reports were provided to you under tab 2 of your board books. We have a representative from Ludston and McCormick present to answer any questions you may have related to the audit. Additionally, any questions on the annual report can be directed to the executive director as you see fit. Are there any questions for either Lunsman and McCormick and Ms. Kraus or the executive director? I believe almost everybody was there at the committee meeting to hear the report. And again, let me thank you, Ms. Kraus, for your hard work on the audit. As we go on. I will now move to affirm the committee's recommendation to approve these two reports. The draft resolution has been provided to you under tab 4 of your board book. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Okay, second? A second? Okay, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much, and I'll let you go
Thank you.
on all of that. We really do appreciate all of your work, so thank you. I will now move to affirm the recommendation of the Governance Committee to approve the policies of the BFSA along with the annual procurement and prop payment reports. I would like to take them all as one action. The guidelines, policies, and reports have been provided under tab 1 in your board book, and the accompanying draft resolution is under tab 3 in your board book. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution as of all these reports as a whole? Motion to approve. Second? Thank you. Any discussion of any of those? And again, I think everybody was at the committee meeting to hear and discuss these items. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The resolution passes. Our next item of business is to review the final 2025-2028 financial plan for the city of Buffalo. The BFSA report on this item is provided under tab 5 of your board book, along with a copy of a submission received from the mayor. Jeanette Rowe will review this item with us today. Jeanette?
Thank you. If you could advance the slide, Nathan, I appreciate it. All right. So what I wanted to review was the final plan. It includes certain, uncertain, and speculative revenue. And this is, can you go to the first chart, please? Yeah, thank you. Includes certain, uncertain, and speculative revenues. And this is consistent with what was reported before. There are increases to state aim above and beyond what the state has provided with the one-time $5 million increase for the next 2 years. The total increases to state aid that are uncertain are $43.8 million. $13.7 million of dollars over the 4 years of the financial plans have been included for occupancy tax, which has not been approved at the state level. There is $44 million of casino revenue that is included. We're looking at that in terms of 2 different buckets. The first one is historically, recent history has put that revenue closer to $7.5 million. So potentially overestimated, assuming that collections were going to be occurring on the current contract with the state and the Senate Gaming Commission. However, that agreement is currently expired. Funds are being placed into escrow. They are not being paid to the state, and the city has no control over when that agreement is going to be reached, as it's between the state and the Senate Gaming Commission, nor does the city have any control over what the terms are going to be of that contract when it is so. So we're certainly tracking that, and we're including the full amount on this schedule. Cannabis tax is the tax that is assessed on legal cannabis sales. It's budgeted at $17.1 million over the financial plan, and it's included on this list as uncertain revenue due to the slow rollout at the state level, as well as the whole host of issues surrounding that. Cannabis fines, that was added to revenue during the adoption process. It's included at $6.8 million. Those are fines that are intended to be assessed on illegal cannabis shops that are shut down and then fined according to the state allowable fine schedule. We've included that on this schedule as well, as there is certain local laws and local procedures that need to be put into place before this revenue can be collected. Parking meter fees and traffic violation fees are cumulatively questioned at $13.6 million and $10.2 million. It's not the full amount that's budgeted, it's the amount that is over the historical amount that we have listed as potentially being overestimated for a total of $149.3 million over 4 years of the financial plan. Now, the board reviewed the adopted budget at the June 17th board meeting. The city did provide and submit a gap closing plan to address the $22.2 million at that time, which was reviewed and accepted by the board. So the remainder of this report and this discussion is on the 3 out years of the financial plan. Next slide, please. So there are 4 main actions that the city administration has returned as being available to close the budget gap. And the first is FEMA disaster relief. We know that FEMA disaster relief is coming to the city. We don't know when it's coming to the city. It is for reimbursement for snow-related costs that occurred in 2022 and are estimated at $10 million from FEMA. The second is personnel-related, and that involves the freezing of vacant positions. So not the elimination of vacant positions, but not filling vacant civilian positions. And that's important. It's an important distinction, as it does not involve freezing any of the protective services. And the general belief, we had a thorough conversation with the administration about overtime. And as we know, overtime is largely under budgeted, but funded through vacancies. Those two very much relate with each other. The fewer vacancies, the less overtime that's incurred. So the total for personnel-related expenses, and that also includes pension costs as well as health insurance costs, are over the financial plan, $66.1 million. The next category is a freeze on capital outlay spending of $4.5 million over the 3 years. This accounts for approximately 60% of the total amount that is budgeted annually through the general fund for capital outlay spending. $4.5 million over the 3 years of the financial plan. It leaves about $1 million annually for capital outlay spending still in the financial plan. And the fourth category is the elimination or the consolidation of non-essential city contracts. That amount increases from $1.5 million in 25-26 to just about $5 million in 27-28 for $9.7 million. These actions address all of the uncertain revenues outside of the ones that we've kind of classified as subject to timing revenue recognition delays, possibly, and that was due to primarily to the state and getting distracted by all the plans, but for casino revenue, for the contract for casino revenue. a general review. So where do we get to based on this? There's two categories of recommendations. And the first is to request an enhancement to the gap elimination plan, fully understand additional financial impacts that should be taken into consideration, and importantly, to understand the provisions on the delivery of services to city residents. This would involve capital outlay and a request of an itemized detail list requested to be able to assess what would not be purchased. We're interested in costs that would be associated with delayed or foregone acquisition, plans for recommencement, and assessment on the impact of services, as I mentioned. For the non-essential contracts, we're also looking for a list of what these contracts are, an analysis of consequential costs that might exist from either eliminating or consolidating the contract, as well as an assessment on the impact on services. And the third is with respect to the hiring freeze, a prioritized list by positions or departments, and an analysis again on the impact of services. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, to assist with the uncertain revenue categories and our, the board's requirement to monitor revenues, we are recommending additional analysis and reporting before each regular board meeting of BFSA. The resolution indicates 2 weeks before a regular board meeting of the BFSA, and it would ask for information on cannabis fines from the standpoint of collections to date, as well as current events and current news. How likely is the receipt of cannabis fines to the extent that it's been budgeted and forecasted? Same thing with casino revenue. FEMA reimbursement, we're asking for an update before each meeting in terms of where the FEMA reimbursement stands. With respect to overtime, excuse me, looking for an analysis of carried vacancies against overtime projections to ensure that we have that contingency, so to speak, covered through the vacancies. And for parking meters, as well as traffic violation fees, excuse me, we're also looking for an analysis and assessment of the likelihood of receiving the revenues as budgeted. Thank you. And finally, a continual assessment of the need to modify the financial plan, and of course, a modified financial plan to be developed is necessary. That concludes my comments and my coughing.
Thank you. It's now open to discussion. Does anyone have any comments? Jeanette, Andy?
None here.
Is Delano there?
Yes.
What is his response? Well, what is his response to what is being presented by the board staff? But I guess one quick question I have is, obviously the most significant part of the gap closing plan is your vacancy attrition, or $49 million of that. What will that do? What impact would that have on the delivery of city services? I mean, I don't know where all these attrition unfilled vacancies are going to occur, but I was just curious as to, what departments will be more severely impacted by these unfilled jobs if they don't include any public safety agencies such as police and fire, obviously. So I was just curious as to how you're going to arrive at, that significant dollar amount, by the way, through attrition, and that's just my perspective. But how is that going to impact on city services?
First and foremost, we want to thank the BFSA for their analysis on the city's plan. As Jeanette stated, it's a 4-year plan. BFSA working agreement with fiscal year 25 budget. What we're discussing is the outer years. The city is fully aware of the financial situation that we're in. Work with BFSA, Common Council, the Comptroller's Office, also internally with the city departments. In regards to cuts or what the BFSA's questionable revenue is more, they're looking at it from their perspective. They did an analysis on the outer years of where they think the revenue, whether the revenue will come in or not. Our analysis based on put it in the budget as if this revenue will come in. So in the outer years is when, like let's say fiscal year 26, is really when the city will have to look at ways to increase our revenues and manage or reduce our expenditure. The items that Jeanette listed is some of the items that we feel comfortable we will look at first, especially filling unfilled positions. We have around 3,000 budgeted positions, maybe 2,700 is filled. So we have 300 unfilled positions right now. We already look at every request to fill an open position to see if there's someone else able to do that job within the union or the employee to provide that service prior to us creating a new position. We understand that we use unfilled positions to cover our shortfall. We understand that the revenue has been stagnant for the city of Buffalo and expenditures have gone up. So our goal is really looking at the 4-year plan and finding out a way to increase our revenue. We know there's a number of revenue streams that the city has acted on, and even within this fiscal year 25 budget, looking at the way to increase fees, fines, implement the hotel occupancy tax, a number of items that we've worked on as a cabinet that's kind of being stalled or still being discussed. That's not to say that those additional revenue streams won't occur in fiscal year 26, 27, 28. So I think what we're looking at is projecting out in the outer years what revenues that we're budgeting for in the current year. So we'll continue to go after those additional revenues along with managing our expenditures. Andy, to answer your question, yes, if the city do decide to cut positions or not fill positions, that could be a decrease in services. But that's not our first option. We're looking at from a revenue perspective and from expenditure perspective. We will provide the request information that the BFSA has asked of the city of Buffalo, reports. In regards to 2 weeks prior, probably have a conversation with regards to that, maybe 2 weeks, or 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks to get the requested data to the BFSA. We only can respond or provide information that we have control over. As Jeanette stated, anything with cannabis, that's one with the state. FEMA reimbursement, as we know, FEMA takes whatever period of time and documentation they request before they release anything. That's a federal thing. There's one more item. A couple things that's out of the city's control, but the city will provide whatever data we have at that time prior to that board meeting. We can provide prior to actual school receiving those revenue lines, but any new information, if we have it, we will share it as we've had some discussions with the BFSA and working closely with the BFSA to make sure city financials are going in the right position. Like, we know this is nothing new. We've talked about it in the beginning. We continue to have conversations with the BFSA, Common Council. We just have to figure out a way to be able to increase our revenues and manage.
And Delano, maybe just for a little bit more clarification, then, based on these not filling these vacant positions, is there somewhat of a breakdown departmentally as to how you're arriving at, $16,250,000 on the 25, 26, and I mean, is there some basis for this? I mean, is this? You said there's over 300 vacancies right now. Is that what that translates into? Is like $16 million a year?
We filed a quarterly report and our gap report, and there's a report on there.
I'm looking at the gap closing summary. I apologize. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're estimating about over $16 million a year. You did. I apologize if I didn't hear you correctly, but did you say that there's over 300 positions right now that are unfilled?
Currently, yes. We
Okay,
filed-
now, these unfilled positions, I don't know if you have a departmental breakdown as to where they all are, but is this the type of savings you're gonna be generating throughout this current fiscal year?
Yeah, so here's what, we filed a quarterly report with the common council. Within that report, we have employment levels. And when that report with employment levels is broken out by department, each city
Okay.
department, how many budget positions, how many field positions, how many available positions.
Okay.
We're not necessarily saying that if we get to that fiscal year 26 going forward, we will look at any openings and not fill them, but we also will look at ways to create additional revenues. So this is
All right,
an option.
no, okay, I understand that.
The city
they
also-
generally, I'm sorry, can I just continue one quick second? I apologize. In general, do you agree with the difference between, what your plan is proposing versus what the control board is saying, the control board staff, that right now over the next, between 25 and 26 and 27 and 28, that you're still gonna be short about $37 million?
We don't have the results. It's a good analysis for the BFSA to do a review, to look at our actual pay, because we put it into a 4-year plan. Yeah, they're doing analysis, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but from the city perspective, we're also doing the same type of review that they're doing, and we feel like these revenues will come into play. The question is, will the BFSA say, what if they don't come into play? And here's the suggestions that the city provided to the BFSA, depending on what happens in fiscal years 26 through 28.
Okay.
Actual budgeted numbers.
And, okay, and I also have not, given credence to the possibility of the timing of when you think a lot of these revenues come in, but you seem confident that they may materialize throughout the balance of the 4-year plan?
Correct, and if they don't, we'll take action accordingly.
Okay, and I don't know if this is also premature, Chairman, but I was curious as to, how much do we have in the way of ARPA funds that are yet to be committed by December 31st?
And I think we're gonna have a discussion in a little bit, Andy, about that, because I think there are a number of issues around that need to be discussed more fully. So if we can hold off on that.
Yeah, hold on. No, like I said, I thought maybe it might be premature, so I'll hold off on my questions.
No, thank you, Andy.
Okay.
I think there are a number of things that people need to understand about what a financial plan is and what a financial plan isn't. We have a financial plan so we can look into the future best we can and be able to say, if things don't change, what's going to be the result of our budget, so we can make adjustments and we won't be surprised. And what we've done at BFSA is to ask for a gap plan to say, you need to forecast out, given our best estimates, not just yours, but our best estimates, what would you do if the worst case scenario actually happened? How would we react to this? Let's not react to it 2 days before the council has to vote on something. Let's start that discussion today for the next 3 to 4 years. And I think that's what the control board is saying. We need to make everybody aware, not just the folks that are in City Hall, not just the council, but the community as well, so that they can understand just how difficult these situations can become. And if we do that early enough on, I think we're going to have a lot less problems, and we won't have to have the disruption in services and things if we do this correctly. Because if we wait too long, then the services will be disrupted. So let's have those discussions now, even though they're painful and hard, so that we minimize any bad outcomes that we can have. That's really what we're trying to do here, I think, today. The other thing that I think is important that hasn't been discussed is a gap plan is not looking at the other revenues that we could be talking about that could happen in the future. We're holding certain things constant. The one that I think for the community and the council to think about is obviously property taxes. Is that when we started under a control period, we were not going to be able to raise property taxes because we were at our constitutional limit. So that had to be taken off the table. Over the number of years in the control and non-control period, we've worked with the city, we've worked with the mayor and the council to be able to bring that down so that now one of the options that is on the table would be looking at raising property taxes, not just next year, we raised it this year, but looking out over the next few years and saying what would be appropriate so that services aren't hurt. We also, and my favorite one, is putting the city on notice that we need to go to Albany and we need to fight for additional funds. Some of that might be pilots or payment in lieu of taxes. We've seen SUNY with the medical school coming downtown, taking a large number of spaces off the tax rolls and a lot of dollars off the tax rolls. We should be pushing to get tax revenues from that so that we do that, because if I'm, and I don't get the number exactly, what is it, 43%, 46% of the property in the city of Buffalo is tax exempt, okay? Now with all of the things that the Catholic Church is doing, are we going to make sure that any of those sales come back onto the property tax rolls in an appropriate way? There may be reasons for that not to happen, but that has to be an open discussion that everybody needs to have, whether in the community, at the council, at BFSA. We need to have these discussions now before all of this is done and we're surprised. So I want to thank Delano for putting in the extra work, and Jeanette, we've had a number of these meetings trying to put this together in a way that not only BFSA can understand it, but the council can understand it and the community can understand it. We've talked about maybe having meetings, and I may be stealing your thunder, so I apologize, but having meetings out in the community and hoping that the community will come and start to have some of those discussions and talk to us about all of this. Because the COVID money is coming due, as Director Sanfilippo has said, we need to make sure we're using all of that money. We've gone through the Great Recession and now COVID, and all of these disruptions have made it hard to be able to do all of this. But this is where we are. We need to be able to put Buffalo on track to prosper and survive going forward. So I'm sorry for my long diatribe, but I thought some of that needed to be said as we go through that. Are there any other discussion or questions?
The only question I had, and this is mainly because this was a new item that we hadn't talked about previously. Delana, how did you arrive at the $10 million figure for the FEMA disaster, or like the breakdown between, you know, the several outyears?
Well, we, back in, from the blizzard of 2022, we submitted a list of FEMA reimbursable costs to the city for doing this. So that list was like 10.1 million. We continued to work with FEMA from 2023 up to provide private applications to people to get reimbursed. Year to date, we probably received almost like $704,000 from FEMA, and they're still reviewing our application.
Have you submitted everything?
We submitted everything.
Yeah, because I mean, it's still open where you're able to continue.
And it's a process. Okay. No quick turnaround. We just finally, I think, received our last payment for COVID. So, but that's why we spread it over see that.
Okay, and so you said you believe the sum total of your submission is 10.1 million?
Yes, and we have that analysis.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious, because again, this was the only one that, you know, was an item that we talked about.
And we look at it as uncertain, simply because FEMA has some part of deciding how much that's going to be going into the future. So we want to make sure that we get
Notoriously so.
Yes, you've got it. So, are there any questions or other comments? The draft resolution includes a recommendation as made within the report we just received. I'm going to defer that vote, as I told Andy, until after we discuss a few other things, in particular, the district's financial plan. Our next item of business is to discuss the status of the ARPA money. Commissioner Dowell, as a remainder of the U.S. Department of Treasury requires, all funds be committed by December 31st, 2024, and spent no later than December 31st, 2026. The schedule of the ARPA funds and the status has been submitted under tab 5 of your board book. I would like to thank Commissioner Dowell for speaking on this item today. Commissioner, can you give us an update on where everything is?
Yes, the data or the numbers that provided to the BFSA was as of 8/12. I run this report monthly for city personnel along with common council members. So the numbers I have added up is as of 9/12. So as everyone knows, the city received $331 million in our funds. As of 9/12, the city has been able to obligate $278 million out of 331, which is 84% of the total amount of funds received. The city has been able to expend $228 million out of $331 million already received, which is 69% of the total funds received. So as of today, we have as of 9/12, we have $54 million unencumbered. We've stated numerous times, we're fully aware of the Treasury guidelines to have these funds encumbered by 12/31/2024, and based off the data I provided today, we're at 16% unencumbered, so which is $54 million that we are looking to and will encumber by the 12/31 deadline. We do work with our departments, our project managers of these funds. They get monthly reports. They also work closely with our PMs who work closely with the recipients to make sure that we are contracting these dollars out to make sure following the rules of the agreement, ensure that we meet the deadlines, so not only encumbrance, but also the Senate dollars.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Well, Delano, thank you for presenting this spreadsheet relative to the commitment of the funds. Actually, one of my questions before I saw this was how much ARPA funds are yet to be committed by December 31st, and I just saw where it's $54,065,000 and change. Has the administration considered using these funds or a portion thereof to help offset the possible shortcomings in the financial gap closing plan?
Well, at this point, we plan on spending the dollars of where they were awarded, but we will look in the middle of October, first week of November, look to see where we're at to make sure that the money that's outstanding that has not been obligated. We'll work with those recipients to check to see where they're at. I mean, we're continuously, our project managers are continuously in communication with the recipients of these funds, but if the fund's not moving or they're real stagnant and we're getting close to that deadline, we'll have a conversation and see what else or what we need to do.
Okay, because I'm looking at the numbers like as far as like the control board analysis is we're about $37 million in projected differences between the gap closing plan and what you guys presented. So now I just see that there's $54 million available, and I didn't know, not being privy to any of the discussions that you guys have internally, whether or not there was a possibility that you would consider putting a portion of the ARPA funding to help close that, prospective or anticipated or estimated gap. So that's just my observation at this point. Okay?
Yeah, we thank you for that. Like I said, everything will be on the table, but the plan is to spend the money, the amount of recipients per the agreement. But we'll monitor, as we've been monitoring these funds from
Yeah, and I would assume that obviously there may be some preliminary discussions taking place with the Common Council, in as much as I think they have to approve everything. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, internally, we'll have our discussions, and we'll have discussions with the council when we get to that point. But the mayor can submit an amendment, but it has to be approved by the council.
Thanks, Delano.
Thank you.
Just a separate question is, I guess it's concerning timing though too, is that I know out of this 54 million, a large amount of that is out in community groups and other groups like that. And I guess my concern is, do they have the ability, and who's helping them to make sure, one, that if they're going to spend it, that they can comply with the rules so that we're going to be able to do that? And if not, how are we going to deal with that? And it would seem to me that we can't wait till even the middle of October to have that kind of help to them if that's what they need. And then further is that as we move into October and the end of October, if these groups look like they're not going to be able to comply, what is the discussion going to be? Because they're planning to do something, but they may not be able to get the money. It would be better to pull it, in my view, not the board's view, it would be better for us to pull that money back, use it in the operating budget at this point, and then work with those community groups to figure out how we're going to help them with their projects. But what I would hate to see is somewhere in November, they're saying that they can do this, and we find out they can't, and we've got to give the money back. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying, but we're working with the community groups now. We're working with every recipient. And we report out to the Common Council, we report it to the BFSA, but we have project managers for each of these recipients. So they're in constant communication with the project managers already. So all the conversations are already being held. And in regards to the outstanding balance of community groups, the goal, when you look at this, is a arrears program. We're still working on that. It's almost like $10 million right there. Right. We haven't spent yet. We've got another $8 million in community centers and renovations. We haven't spent yet. That we're contracting. There's a process with DPW, other departments to contract these dollars out. So even though you see it as unencumbered, there's work being done. There's conversations being held daily to get these dollars out. And even when you look at, and I'm just looking at our balances we have right now, cultural institutional support, $8 million here. We're working with public works on getting those dollars out. And then we have a couple other lines, construction lines for the most part. So in regards to the funding that's available, we're comfortable. Being able to get these dollars encumbered, it's just a process. And we had the council, we have other people not feeling as if we'll be able to get these dollars encumbered. As I said, we got $331 million, we got $54 million that we still need to encumber. So we're doing what we need to do. We have our eye on making sure we get these dollars encumbered by 12/31. We still want to project out what exactly we're going to do as time goes. We'll have a clearer picture, but we're reviewing. We're having constant communications with the project managers, with the department, and with the recipients of this one.
And I'm glad to hear that, but I think there could be a solution in here too, if we look at some of the community centers and others that could be bonded. Gets to a point where you need to claw that back, we could then be looking at trying to bond some of this stuff into the future, and do a switch if we had to. So we're not going to be necessarily hurting the community group. We're just rearranging things to make sure that we keep all of our financial house in order, and we're financing this correctly. We keep all the federal money, while then maybe pushing some of this off into some kind of bonding that we're looking into the future. And I'm sure that they'll do the analysis of that as BFSA if that comes in the future, and we're more than happy to work with you on all of that.
I agree, but as you stated, we know we have to use a bonding if need right now. Trust the recipients of these funds to work with the administration on getting these dollars contracted out. So we'll look at different, funding streams, but right now, we feel that the cities will be able to fund this.
Mr. Chairman, could I just backtrack a bit again on the ARPA funding, on the unexpended balance? I'm assuming, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is gap closing an allowable expenditure of those ARPA funds?
I don't think it's allowable, but it's something where we can offset our expenditures with like public safety and reimburse ourselves for, like revenue loss replacement. But like I stated, we're reviewing, but we feel the agency will be able to come to balance.
Okay, well, I was just curious as to whether or not the city's corporation council, has not investigated, but done any research on the appropriate use of these funds for that particular purpose in the event that you guys may consider using it as a possible gap closing measure. Have they been involved at all in research?
Yeah, we use corporation counsel, actually use outside counsel, to determine usage of the So we do anything, we'll have conversations with the corporation counsel. We have people internally that's familiar with our guidelines. We use internally city personnel along with council before we make any decisions with these strangers.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if they had an opinion as to whether or not it is possible for the use of ARPA funds for gap closing measures.
We can follow up and get something right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I had one.
Yes, go ahead.
Reno, of the 54 million that is unobligated, how much of that falls within your revenue loss category? Zero? Okay, so this is all traditionally, do you still have capacity under your revenue loss?
Yes, that we have for revenue placement.
Well, how much each?
It's going to change, so we have to form an annual form of
Yeah.
closing out our fiscal year 24, we should have those results by, I think November of 2024, and at that time, we'll know.
Because then that's gonna be the key with flexibility.
And that's why,
Right. Great, as long as you have that flexibility, I mean, obviously, that's the whole point of the revenue loss, and to get to Director Sanfilippo's point is, depending upon how much capacity you have left, you can use some or all of this remaining as a gap closer, because you can use revenue loss for basically everything except for pension prepayment and automatically putting in the fund.
Well, thank you for that, even though I think we grilled you a little bit.
no, I appreciate it.
So, as we go on, are there any other questions?
Yes, this is Jeanette. Acoustically, I can't hear the room as well. But so forgive me. My question is Andy's question. Originally, so you may have said this, but I'm sorry, just indulge me and say it again because I couldn't hear. Originally, ARPA money was usable as revenue replacement. That was part of the spirit and intention. And so Andy's question was, he didn't use the word revenue replacement. He said gap closing. But Delano spoke to gap closing by saying that the other game going on is revenue enhancement. So again, Andy's question, and as I said, I just couldn't hear. ARPA was usable as revenue replacement. We have 2 years yet to spend ARPA money. We have to commit by the end of the year. So indulge me just because I couldn't hear. Yes or no, we can use the balance available in ARPA as revenue replacement?
Yes. Out of the $331 million the city received, we already used $150 million for revenue placement to offset costs incurred for police and public safety services. We had $54 million unobligated. We've already had that $54 million tied to a project. So the question is, if that project or recipient cannot encumber those funds by 12/31, prior to 12/31, we will work with those recipients. If we need to reallocate those funds to another line, the city will. But right now, the city feels like that these recipients will be able to obligate those funds by 12/31.
That answer your question, Jeanette?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll move on now to the Buffalo School District. And the first item to review is the 2025-2028 financial plan, with the focus of the review on the 3 out years of the financial plan. A copy of the analysis and report is provided under tab 6 of your board book. As a reminder, the BFSA reviewed in detail the 2024-2025 adopted budget at its June 17th, 2024 board meeting. The findings of this report will be presented by Senior Analyst Nathan Miller and Executive Director Rowe. Additionally, we have representatives from the district for any questions and comments the board may have. Nathan, would you start the process?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everybody. First, Director Jurasek, I turned up the volume and I moved the phone. I just wanted to make sure that you were able to hear a little bit better.
It's better. Thank you.
You're welcome. The following is an overview of the Buffalo School District's 2025-2028 financial plan. Just a brief overview. The budget was passed back on May 15th. The 4-year plan was approved by the Board of Education on August 21st. High level, in all 4 years of the financial plan, there are structural deficits. 24-25 deficit is $83.4 million. Cumulative 4-year deficit is just under $200 million. We'll look at that a little bit closer and start to drill down. The 23-24 year included about $45 million of ARPA-funded programs and services. Approximately half of that was continued by a general fund funding. The 4-year impact of that is $180 million. That included transferring personnel from grants fund into the general fund, as well as, as I said, the programs and services. Okay. The school district has a 2-year right-sizing plan. What that is that they're taking a look at the trend that student population has been declining and personnel has been rising. And so this year will include a study of what 2 schools could be closed and consolidated with other ones. They're yet to be determined, but the 2-year plan would have 2 schools closing in 25-26 and a reduction in budgeted positions in year 1 and year 2 primarily. Year 1 has reduction of 224 full-time equivalent positions on all funds basis, and an additional 250 full-time equivalent positions in year 2. Just want to be clear that because those positions and services were transferred from grant funding into the general fund actually saw an increase in positions. But overall, positions were reduced by 254.
Are these positions teachers?
Including teachers, correct.
All right, but it doesn't specify how many teachers versus other employees.
Year 2 is exclusively teachers at this point, 250. I don't have the exact number for this year. It is in the report to break out between the 2.
Have it right there.
You have it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have a slide up here that does a nice timeline of the deficits and the position cuts, so I'll go through that now.
Yeah, well, no, I'm sorry, don't let me, I'm sorry if I get premature on things, but when I just see general numbers, I would appreciate seeing breakdowns on, when you say 224 FTEs or 250 FTEs, I would like to see a breakdown of, well, what are the FTEs? Are they administrative jobs? Are they custodians? Or how much are teachers? I'm just, the FTEs is kind of a vague number for, at least to me. I don't know about everybody else. So I don't know how they arrive at, where they're getting a lot of their savings from and at whose expense.
Sure, I can get, it's in the report, I can get the exact numbers for year 1. Year 2 is exclusively PTF positions. Year 3 and 4 are also PTF. But before the end of the meeting,
All right, well, it'd be nice to have that breakdown, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Are they through attrition, or are they looking to actually cut?
Primarily through attrition, only layoffs if needed. I don't have the exact number, Jim can speak to that, but I don't believe there were layoffs this year.
Jim, do you know? Are you on line? He was.
Okay. Right now, the 250 are planned to be through attrition. We're expecting at least 300 retirements at the end of this current year. And then the second question might be, well, they all can't leave the classroom. No, we don't. Even if they all were teachers, there's 180 what we call TOSAs, teachers on special assignment, that do not interact with the children. Those positions would be eliminated and they would be moved back to the classrooms.
Okay. Have you done an analysis of where the retirements are by grade level and where are they, because obviously
at this point, no.
Okay. Because obviously if all the second grade teachers retired at once, you'd still have to hire, even if,
That's correct.
You didn't have 12th grade teachers. So that would be something I guess we'd sort of be interested in at least understanding when we say that we have a gap plan that's going to get rid of teachers, of just how variable that is and how doable it is, I guess, is the
Sure.
best answer.
I understand.
Thank you. Nathan?
Yep, and I just looked it up. I have non-teaching positions, I had just north of 102 for the current fiscal year. Jim, do you agree with that number?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Okay, so the timeline here, we'll look at just the 3 out years. The deficit goes down quite a bit in 25-26. It's just over 35 million. That year we'll see an additional, as I said, 250 FTE positions reduced. The 2 schools would close, be consolidated following that analysis. Then at the end of the year, 5 of the current labor contracts would be expired, barring settlements. Moving on to the next year, the deficit's a little bit lower, and the reason why is because out year 1 has a one-time $10 million interfund transfer.
Yep.
Capital. So year 2, all of the position cuts have pretty much been made. There's an additional 13 ETF positions on both general fund and all fund basis. And then the remaining of the current labor agreements would be expired. So barring settlements, all labor agreements would be expired by the end of that fiscal year. And then in the 4th out year, there's a deficit of just about 48 million.
And for point of confirmation again, all these teacher positions are going to be through attrition or retirements?
That's the plan right now.
Okay, so no live bodies.
That's the plan, yes. And we were successful in doing that this year.
Okay.
Okay, so this table here just gives the high-level overview of general fund revenues and expenditures. I'll go into them in a little bit more detail, but you can see that there's deficits in each year, and the bottom yellow shows fund balance as a percentage of total general fund appropriations. Taking a look at revenues, revenues are either flat or increase gradually based on some sort of inflationary factor. Overall, it's pretty conservatively budgeted, increase of $34.4 million or 2.2% over the 4-year plan. Each year of the plan, there's a little bit more revenue overall.
Nathan, the use of fund balance over the out years is it's $200 million.
Correct.
Okay, how much do they have in total fund balance available once they use up the $200 million?
64.
I have at the end of the 4-year plan, and it's actually Jim's number, overall, 196.4, including restricted and unrestricted. Just the unassigned fund balance would equal 64.3 million, including 4% that would need to be required per board policy for.
Okay, hold on. So total fund balance right now prior to these plans is how much?
This is the unaudited
396.
number.
About 396 in total, Andy?
Okay, so 396 million in total fund balance, and that includes restricted and unrestricted, or available and unavailable.
Yes.
And then you're going to use over the 4 years a 200 million of that.
Correct.
But that doesn't assume, by the way, that throughout these next 3 or 4 years, you could be adding to the fund balance. I'm assuming. Is that true?
Yes, I think that becomes less and less likely as we cut the vacancies and don't fill the retirements. Those savings, for lack of a better word, are going to start dwindling away.
Yeah. Well, I understand now you guys are probably going to be going through your year-end audit, and I don't know if you're projecting an increase in fund balance at June 30th, but so there's items still in play here where you could be able to use fund balance, but maybe not as a complete depletion of the fund balance over the next 4 years.
Yes.
Okay.
And Jim, the whatever fund balance you have that's not restricted, you're going to need for your contract negotiations. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So while people are looking at this fund balance, they may think that it's a large amount, but given the things that you have to do with it going forward, we are getting pretty tight.
Our expenditures, including debt service and benefit, is $100 million a month.
Thanks. Nathan?
Sure. All right, moving on to general fund expenditures. This 4-year plan is different from ones that we've seen in the past, in that because there is the reductions in year 2, it's not linear. There's from 24-25 to 25-26, there's reductions in almost every expenditure category. Then it starts to increase back up. So take a look at 25-26, employee compensation is less because there's fewer positions. Same thing with the benefits, of course. Debt service continues to drop. Charter school tuition payments drops year 2 of the plan. And I just want to explain that briefly. That's only because year 1 includes the assumption of a one-time catch-up on the special education payments, $14 million. Jim could speak to that. I know that NYSED had said that they're not going to be collecting that this year. It's a good number. It will be collected at some point in the future. but it kind of distorts that payment. So there's, the current year charter school payment will not be that high based on what we know tuition rates are right now.
Yes.
Jim, have you gotten anything on the Rockefeller plan and where you think state aid is gonna be in the formulary at all?
We had our first information meeting with the representatives of Rockefeller. It was myself and the other big five.
Right,
We gave them a rundown, and all the school districts rundown were basically the same. Decreasing enrollments, but rapidly increasing ELL and SPED counts. So you got less kids with more services and costs. We're all located within very poor cities. So there's little or no chance we're going to get any revenue relief there. Those were the main driving factors. And then the social and emotional wellness issues and all the problems that the student bodies are experiencing. The gentleman from the Rockefeller Center wasn't quite prepared for all of that information coming at him in a very uniform fashion. And he made this statement, there's no way he's going to be able to make specific recommendations to the formula within the time frame provided, that the problems seem bigger and deeper than he expected. So we're planning for revenues, and we're filing those as well as the audit and the ST3 by Monday. The state will tweak the formula aid formula. It will not be based upon Rockefeller Institute specific recommendations. And it'll probably also be influenced by the state's finances, which it shouldn't be now that we just completed the full funding of the current foundation aid formula. So that's the report. I wouldn't expect any great changes derived directly from the Rockefeller Foundation.
thanks. Sorry.
Okay, so I'll go through this briefly here. Employee compensation decreases in 526 based on position cuts. The financial plan itself does not include any estimate for settling the expiring labor costs. What I did was I took a look at, I calculated average salaries for each year for each employee group. I backed out step increases. Then I put in hypothetical 2% and 3% increases, backed in the appropriate step increase for that. And using those numbers, the cumulative 4-year increase to the financial plan would be $22.4 million, assuming 2% increases for all employees eligible, and $33.5 million based on 3% hypothetical. So this shows, what I have here is historical and projected pupil to staff ratios. This uses actual numbers from fiscal year end 2019 all the way up through fiscal year end 2024, and then the student and employee counts in all 4 years of the financial plan. So the red line on the bottom is pupil to staff, and the one above it mirrors it is pupil to instructional staff. What I always want to point out when I show this slide is that I don't want it lost that there's 7.5 teachers in a classroom or excuse me, 7.5 students for every 1 teacher. It's not a representation of classroom size. There's co-teaching models, there's class teachers that, as Jim mentioned, are teacher coaches, guidance counselors, etc. So what you see is based on this 2-year plan, the ratio starts to climb over the financial plan. There's a little bit of a decrease pupil to staff in the current year, only because we're comparing a budgeted number hypothetical versus an actual number from the prior year. Well, you can see that the numbers start to grow over the financial plan, particularly in year 1 and 2. Just briefly here, this shows historical public school enrollment, both district and charter. There were some significant decreases over the pandemic. The pupil counts have not risen, but the rate of decline has slowed quite a bit. It's pretty stable now. The district anticipates that annually there'll be a 200 pupil drop from district schools and a commensurate increase in charter schools. So we take a deeper look at fund balance, what's available, what's projected. The district's financial fund balance position has improved quite a bit over the last 7 years. At fiscal year end 2017, fund balance totaled $182.6 million, including $70 million in unassigned. The unaudited number for fiscal year end 2024 was just under $400 million, including $156 in unassigned. As we mentioned, the financial plan includes quite a bit of drawdown of fund balance, and that would be decreased to $196.4 by the end of the plan, including $64.3 million.
You come in, sir. Not done
Those
yet.
numbers do not reflect several contracts either. And this is just a table chart depicting those numbers. Finally, this 4-year deficit projection includes, on the left are the blue columns. So those are the deficits within the financial plan. Orange is district's deficit plus a 2% hypothetical settlement, and then a gray bar showing the 3% hypothetical. So year 4, as you know, the financial plan is just under $200 million in usage of fund balance. Under those hypotheticals, it would increase to $222 million with a 2% settlement, and up to $233.1 under the 3% settlement. That concludes my overview. I didn't know if the executive director had
Just a few comments, and thank you, Nathan, for doing such a great summary on a lot of information in a few slides, so I appreciate that. So we talked about the cumulative 4 years deficit is $200 million. It's substantial. And we had some conversations in our office, particularly about what's going to happen beyond this current 4-year outlook. And there are pressures beyond this 4-year outlook. So we are in agreement, and the district has been very public about the need to achieve an operationally balanced budget, and we reiterate the significance of this need as the growth in projected expenditures continues to grow, and it outpaces revenues with a widening budget gap projected in year 4 the plan. The projected available, unassigned fund balance at the conclusion of the 4-year plan is $16.3 million.
Yeah.
That's the amount of unassigned less the amount that is to be set aside according to their fund balance policy. That I would, that's in black and white in the financial plan. Next slide, Nathan. So in response to these challenges, the district has importantly begun to adjust its teaching models to match the decline in student population. We've talked about the number of positions that will decline this year: 122 teaching, 102 non-teaching positions. And next year, there's 250 teaching positions. And we talked about the closure of 2 schools. The cumulative financial impact from these decisions is $96 million of reduced costs over the 4 years of the financial plan. A significant shortfall in the financial plan, although there is a fine fund balance available, as you mentioned, Director Sloss, is that it does not provide for the settlement of labor contracts beyond the expiration date. The amount that Nathan had calculated and talked about earlier primarily hit the last 2 years of the financial plan, so there is adequate time to figure out how to adjust those. But it's something that we recommended that the financial plan be modified to bring in the cost for collective bargaining, or I guess at a minimum moving forward that the cost of collective bargaining could be included in future plans. Okay, and then the final comment was that that was the fund balance that I already spoke about. You can go on to the next slide. And then the modification of the financial plan was a direct recommendation within our report. It's a quotation here, so you clearly understand what is in the report. We laud or praise the district for making the difficult decision to reduce the headcount. It certainly was something that they got buy-in from the Board of Education, and we practiced difficult decisions to do this, and it was the right decision. The costs that are being cut are substantial, and doing it through attrition is clearly preferred. So basically, that's our recommendation.
Is there any more questions? Jim, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I really do appreciate the analysis and research by Nathan and the team and interacting with Jeanette. This is a difficult time, and this is really the first superintendent that's addressed what's been known for a long time: declining enrollments, the need for right sizing, and in the midst of all that, capital project plan and the commissary, things that have been sitting on a to-do list for 10 years. But it will all be driven by our success with the right sizing. And we know that. Not only the success of the right sizing, but efficiently implementing those capital plans and the commissary. We don't have much room for error in any of this. Thank you.
I have 2 questions for Jim. This is Jeanette. The first question is, of all of the ugliest structural difficulties, structural challenges we have, is the state of New York is running out of kids.
Right.
Okay, so given the access that you have to the highest orders of complex data, how bad is that projected to get? Such as 5 years from now, hypothetically, New York State will have 10% fewer kids at the front end of the delivery system than it does now. So first question is, how bad is that ugly structural problem going to get? And then the second question is, in terms of school closings, closing 2 small elementary schools ain't going to save that much money.
No, it's not.
Have you ever considered closing a high school which is vast, a vast, complex, expensive plant. So those are my two questions.
Sure. While I might have access to the data that you mentioned, what we really focus on here is what's happening in our district. And what we're seeing is a net drop of 400 students per year. The beds data for this year will be coming out within 3 weeks. I expect that trend to continue. And again, I mentioned it with our meeting with Rockefeller Institute. The composition of that decreasing head count are ELL costs and SPED costs. So it's really dealing with a double-edged sword. That's where we see it, over the next 4 years, probably a drop of another 1,000 kids.
Okay.
Related to the school closings, boy, you're right on two fronts. Closing 2 schools doesn't save a ton of money by itself. And number 2, there are political considerations, unfortunately.
Oh, geez.
The closure of schools is often called the superintendent killer. If not done, even if done perfectly, there is going to be a wave of board members and community members just taking the opposite stance, just for the heck of it. What that will do, though, on these 1 or 2 that we've singled out at the elementary level, is symbolically let everybody know, unions and everybody else, this is for real. We have schools such as the ones that we've pretty much identified are failing miserably, have a principal with 4 APs, have 6 of those TOSA coaches within them. It's highly symbolic as part of our 2-year plan to start right-sizing the district. And you're also right on about closing a high school. We absolutely need to do that as well. With all the factors, economic and political considered, we'll pretty much go after 2 elementary schools. And we don't have the capacity to plan and implement anything beyond that effectively. Even if it's like black and white economically, what I see is the operations within our district. We don't have the capacity to take on more than that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, discussion? If not, at this time, we'll move to consider the resolution.
No, I'm sorry, Chairman, I have one question. I was on mute there, I apologize.
Sure.
Can I ask a kind of a delicate question as relates to public school safety?
Yeah.
And the expense of security in the school district? What is the plan to increase or improve or hire security personnel to protect the students?
That's a great question. Going through my budget real quick here. We've invested heavily last year and this year. We have metal detectors at every school and our ball fields. We are.
Where does that expense come from? Is that in all other expenditures, Tim?
Yes, and then we've hired 50 extra security guards that are all now funded in the general fund. We're up to
Are they all mostly in high schools, or where are they placed? Or I'm just curious as to
sure.
where is the priority in assigning, security personnel into the school district.
Yeah, one, they're at every school, every grade level. And there's over
Every grade level.
120 of them. And regarding the exact placement, I'd have to get an answer from the chief of our security.
Yeah, could you give us a ballpark estimate as to how much I think the school district is paying now for those kinds of protections of the
Oh,
students?
yeah, I'll give you one right now, super quick. Okay, hang on. 4S. I gotta go through my alphabet again. RS. About 6.3 million for the security guards. That's without benefits. And about 2 million a year for the maintenance on the
Equipment,
metal detectors.
metal detectors. Okay, and I'm assuming that's a pretty significant increase over the past several years.
Up 70%.
70%. Okay.
Thanks. Any other questions, Andy?
I have a general question, not so much about the school district, but back to Delano relative to the gap closing measures.
Sure.
It deals with litigation. Are there any significant unresolved outstanding lawsuits against the city right now? I'm assuming there are, and I was curious as to how much or the impact it would be on the plan.
Well, I know we do set aside money in the fund balance for judgment and claim for any potential lawsuit payouts in the upcoming fiscal year. We work with corporation counsel, so corporation counsel.
Let's say the officer Arnaud or firefighter Arnaud or any other, those are going to be significant. I'm just curious as to how much they are, Delano, or how much the city is being sued for some significant lawsuits against the city. We have a dollar amount?
No, I mean, we set aside based off of corporation counsel things we might have to pay out. But we also know we have other funding opportunities or sources to be able to.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the status was going through the courts right now. Where are some of these cases? The status of where these lawsuits are within the court system.
Just hope that we settle for the big amount and then kind of move from there. But we feel corporation counsel does a great job to help reduce possible payouts, and we just kind of take it from there. But we are in constant communication with corporation counsel potential.
All right. All right. So that's kind of a down the road question, I would assume. So.
Right.
All right. No, that's all I have, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Andy. So we're moving to consider the resolution to approve the financial plan as a whole. A draft resolution was emailed earlier to you. May I have a motion to approve this resolution? Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
Second. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? The motion passes. Our last agenda item is the review of the proposed labor agreement between the Buffalo City School District and the Transportation Aides of Buffalo. A copy of BFSA's analysis and report has been provided under tab 6, along with a copy of the submission from the district superintendent, which includes a copy of the contract and the district's financial analysis. Nathan, can you take us home?
Absolutely. The following is the analysis of the proposed successor agreement between the district and the Transportation Aids of Buffalo, i.e. the bus aides. Okay, so the labor agreement recently expired, the end of the last fiscal year. This successor agreement would be in effect from July 1st of 2024 all the way up through June 30th, 2027. It covers the part-time bus aides. Total number of budgeted bus aides are 430, all funds, and there are just about 290 current employees. The terms were agreed to by both parties back on August 17th, and the Board of Education will consider ratifying the contract following the BFSA's review. Make it a little bigger there. So the main components of the contract are wage increases, which would be retroactive to July 1st. Board of Education has what's called a living wage policy resolution. There are, the tier 1 employees here would have compensation that would be lower than that. However, the parties have agreed that rather than taking a look at just hourly compensation, they would structure a comprehensive employee package which maintains a wage scale recognizing years of service and provides other benefits as well. So it's compensation beyond just hourly.
Nathan, do you know whether or not that fulfills the requirements under the city's living wage requirement, which they would be required to follow?
They're not required to follow the cities, but they have their own separate resolution.
Actually, I think they are, but that's okay. But it does allow for the inclusion of health benefits in the calculation. Are they getting health benefits?
They do not get health benefits unless they pay 100% of the policy.
But there is a dollar amount, so I would just suggest you look at the city's, plan, because, I believe they have to still be required to do that.
We had some back and forth with, Mary Scarpini from the school district. They felt comfortable that this contractual term fulfills that requirement.
These are bus aides, right, Dave?
Yep.
Yes.
Right. They may be better off working at Picasso Pizza.
Yes.
That was levity, folks.
I don't disagree, Andy.
Jeez, doesn't anybody have a sense of humor?
No, it's been beaten out of us here at the BPS.
More than 6 years of work, you're not even making $20 an hour.
Yeah.
So this, real briefly, they currently have 6 legal holidays. This contract ends the day after Thanksgiving, so that's a new paid holiday. They will now receive annual reimbursement for shoe grips and a safety feature, especially in the wintertime. And the big one is this new longevity pay. Employees minimum of 7 service years will begin to receive annual lump sum payments. And I have it broken out how much they would get annually based on their years of service.
Just as an aside, isn't school closed the day after Thanksgiving? So what would they be doing if they're now, before they got Thanksgiving off?
They had it off, they weren't getting paid for it. No,
Oh, they had it off and they weren't being paid for it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Dave.
No problem. Some of the terms unchanged, they have unlimited paid leave if they were scheduled to work and there was some sort of weather-related or other emergency. Step 2 and 3 get 5 days annually of inpatient hospitalization. As I mentioned, the district will provide them with health insurance, but they do need to pay 100% of the premium cost the employee does. And there is an existing perfect attendance incentive that's based on quarter, and it goes down for 1 and 2 instances.
Nathan, a question on the health insurance. So given that the district is providing this, they're no longer eligible for Obamacare and subsidies under Obamacare because the city does this, that they look to see whether or not it would be better for these bus aides, for the district not to provide it, and I suspect we'd have to subcontract out. But it seems to me for these folks making under $20 an hour, that we've locked them out of health insurance that they would have been able to get free, which would be worth more than $20 an hour if they ever got sick.
Yeah, Jim, you can correct or confirm this, but, they're not full-time employees, so they're not subject, the district doesn't have to pay a penalty for, under the Affordable Care Act for those, for
That-
providing.
But are they eligible for Obamacare? I don't think they are under, at least looking at the way you've written it. That's my question. Are they eligible for Obamacare?
Jim, I thought they were eligible for Marketplace, but
I thought they were too. I can't give you a definitive answer on that. I can get it for you.
That would be good, because my understanding is if there was provided health care that you were no longer eligible for the exchanges.
Right.
But if there's exceptions, it would be good that they would become eligible somehow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, this just shows the breakout of net costs. I have it for year one, 2, and 3, which is the length of the contract, and then on the far side of the table, what the impact would be on the financial plan. I have a 1-year general fund cost of just over $700,000. 4-year impact would be a net cost of just over $3 million. A lot of these employees work directly with special education students, and as such, they get the district receives a reimbursement, partial reimbursement in the following year's New York State transportation aid. So I backed those increased $8 into my analysis, and 4-year net cost goes down to $2.1 million for general fund, and it's a little bit more for all funds. 7% of the employees are grant funded. Finally, the funding, it's not a huge impact on the budget. Again, it's less than about 0.7% of total budgeted and projected general fund expenditures in the year. There is a $3 million annual reserve for contingency in the financial plan now. As I mentioned, there's about 290 employees now, and they're budgeted up to 430, so it likely will be, for lack of a better term, budgetary savings for the vacancies themselves. And that's how the district is presented that they would fund it, through budgetary transfers if necessary. So in conclusion, the agreement allows the district to settle a labor agreement that recently expired. It provides hourly compensation, additional compensation for employees with 7 or more years of experience, and 1 new paid holiday. The deficit that we mentioned within the adopted budget of four-year plan is not significantly impacted by passage of this. That concludes my.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, may I have a motion to affirm the report as provided by BFSA? Okay, motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I forgot to tell you it was under tab 6, so my apologies. But if you hadn't been looking at it for the last little bit, then. This concludes the business portion of our meeting as included on the agenda. Are there any new business matters to be discussed? Andy, did we get everything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I apologize if I was out of turn there. I thought we were past the school district, so that's why I asked the question about litigation.
No,
I don't have anything.
Appropriate. Just, wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. I'd like to open up the floor today. We did have a visitor, Assemblyman Rivera was here for a while, and we appreciate them coming today. Is there anyone on the phones or anyone else that has an issue or wants to have a moment to discuss something with the board? Seeing none, this concludes the meeting of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for holding in for all this. I think we
Thank
got
you.
a lot of important stuff done today. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.